Good evening. Please let me know who you are once you come in. If you feel comfortable, please invite your followers. It's Money Monday, and today we're talking about preparing for home ownership. So for all you aspiring homeowners out there, this scope is for you. Hey, Brother George, how you doing? Hello, Joan, Exceptional One. All right, and that's the end of the track. Good evening, everybody, and for those of you, that's good. I'm doing good. I had a pretty low-key day, and so, well, it's good to see you on Periscope, Ma. I know you was having trouble finding the app, so I'm glad you're on. I don't call you Joan that often, so that's why I didn't ring a bell. All right, so good evening. For those of you, I saw one just pop in. And for those of you catching this on the replay, if you feel comfortable, please share with your followers. And if I say something that helps you, please share with your followers so they can get that same information as well. So for those of you who do not know me, my name is Janae Murphy. I am a financial consultant and co-founder of Hand in Hand Investment Solutions, where we focus on teaching individuals how to be better managers of their money and prepare them financially for home ownership. And so everything we teach is centered around the principle of good stewardship. And so every Monday I come on Periscope at 7 p.m. and I share financial tips and strategies that will either help you save money or build wealth. And today we're talking about preparing for home ownership. Now, this is a topic that I'm very passionate about. And the reason why I'm passionate about it is because I put a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of thought into making sure that I was set up for success when I purchased my home 2 years ago. And so I want to share that information with you today. So, as I said, I purchased my home 2 years ago in 2014. So I just celebrated 2 years of being a homeowner, July 14th. Woo-hoo. All right, and so home ownership, you know, when you think about the great American dream, you know, that includes a white picket fence, a house, being married, having 3 kids and a dog, or 2 kids and a dog. So typically, thanks, Ma. So typically, that's what you hear when you talk about the American dream. Now, home ownership, you know, I talk to a lot of people, that's something that they eventually want to grow to and eventually want to get to, and that's great. And there are some prerequisites that need to happen in order for that dream to come to fruition. And so we're going to get into that today. And if we don't get through all of them, because I have 4 or 5 tips that I want to run through, you know, I don't want to hold you too long. Don't plan to be on for too long, but if we don't get through them all, then I will do a part 2. So if you're joining for the replay or just getting on, welcome, welcome. Please let me know who you are. And today we're talking about preparing for home ownership. All right, Brazil's in the house. All right, so when preparing for home ownership, the first thing you want to keep in mind is that lenders want to know that you have steady income. I know that's basic, but they want to make sure that you have steady income. So if you think about banks, if you think about mortgage lenders, they're very large companies, and they make money off of giving you money. That thing called interest, That's where you pay them to give you money. And so when they're figuring out who to give money to, they want to make sure that the people that they're about to give money to are trustworthy, are capable of paying their bill every month, and won't stiff them on the bill. Because if you default on your loan, meaning you don't pay, that means that they have to take the loss on their end. So they put a lot of work in up front to vet you and see if you're even a good fit for the type of loans that they have to offer. So, and it would be a mortgage loan for a house. So steady income. I would recommend that, you be on your job for at least, at a very minimum, 6 months, but at least a year. Because being on the job for a year, it shows that you're able to hold steady employment. It shows that you're able to, that time, when you're on the job for a year, it gives you time to also save and put away money. And as you grow and increase in responsibility, that also looks good too. So if you think about somebody who has a job, 2 years here, then they move somewhere else and they're there for a year, and then they move to another job and they're there for 2.5 years. It sounds inconsistent. And so if you think about that, if you had money to give someone, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, would you honestly really want to give money to somebody who bounces around every 2 to 3 years? Probably not, because the chances are, because after 2 years, after 3 years, they may feel like it's time to move on. And so you can tell by that pattern that there's somebody who can't stay planted for more than a short length of time. So I definitely recommend you be on the job at least a year, but no less than 6 months, because that shows that you are trustworthy. It shows that you are able to hold down employment and you're able to earn income in order to pay your mortgage. The second, and this is a huge one, you have to have good credit. Now, this really lets lenders know if you're trustworthy or not. Why? Because your credit report has years of history, whereas with employment, however long you've been employed, that's all they have to go off of. But your credit report, it shows lenders how long you've had credit from the time you opened up any kind of credit up till current day. Do you pay on time? How many times you've been late? Have you ignored your bill and it gone to collections? They're able to tell how much you owe. So if you have a credit card and your limit is, okay, I'll get to that. So if you have a $5,000 credit limit and you're always at $4,000, then that says to a lender that you're not very responsible when it comes to credit. It's one thing if you spend $4,000 and you pay it off within the month. But if you're consistently over the course of 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, if you're continuing to carry a balance month after month and not paying that bill in full, that shows a lender that you're lazy. And so the chances of you possibly paying half your mortgage and then half later and not all at one time, or paying it on time 1 month and paying a little bit the next, that's another pattern that shows the mortgage lender how likely you are to make your mortgage payment. And so my mom was talking about, what if you're advancing in your career, salary wise, so when you get education, when you get certifications, you want more earning potential because you earned it, and so those moves are good because those are considered you have lateral moves, and I get these mixed up. But you want to make sure that if you are going to be changing jobs within your career, you want to make sure it's a step up. And so if you're just moving from side to side, meaning you have a job as a sales rep here and you move to another company and you have the same exact position, it just doesn't make sense. But if you go from being a sales rep and you get an opportunity to be a sales manager somewhere else, you know, that's a great move to make. But I will also caution that you don't want to keep bouncing around, you know, even though you may find a company that is willing to give you more, because the longer you stay on a job and you prove yourself, you can advance within a company. So it's important that when you make these job changes, when you make these career moves, that you're mindful of whether you have the opportunity to advance at that particular company. And, you know, when you go on interviews, those are questions that you need to ask in this department. What opportunities are there to advance? Because I know quite a few people who have jobs in a company where there's nowhere to move. And so they've had the same position for years. Yes, they've gotten raises because companies, they give a certain, you know, 2% raise or a 5% raise or whatever raise based on your performance evaluation. But they have gotten raises over time, but their job has remained the same. And so I definitely support making job moves that, or career moves that will mean you go a step up, meaning your title changes and is complementary to your new salary. So if you go from being a junior analyst to a senior analyst and you're making $10,000 more, awesome. My mom does medical billing, so if you're a coder and then you can move to being a coding manager and you're making an extra $5,000, $10,000, that's a great move. But you also want to be mindful of the company you're moving to, because you don't want to move and then find out that that company doesn't have room for growth. You should ask that question in the interview. You shouldn't knowingly move to a company where there's no opportunity to grow, because you already know it's probably not going to be long before you're moving again. So if you're making a career move, if you're making a job change, make sure it's a step up in both title and salary. And make sure when you're going on your interview that you're asking about opportunities for advancement. Because there are some companies, when you ask that question and they give you the answer, and you can also have a follow-up question within this department, you know, what does the org chart look like? What is the what are the positions leading up to senior leadership? So that way you know how that ladder goes, how that chain goes. So you should always ask within your interview what opportunities there are for advancement, because based on how they answer, you can pretty much figure out, you know, if you're really dissecting, you know, how they answer and also their body language, you can be able to tell whether there's no opportunities for advancement or whether there's a lot of opportunities for advancement. Either it's going to be one or the other. And what I've found, either there's a lot of opportunity or it's very limited. And you don't want to accept a position at a company where the positions are limited, because you will be limited and most likely not stay long with that company. So I hope that helps you, Mom. So Number one, we talked about steady income. Number two, we talked about good credit. So as far as credit score, I would suggest at a minimum that you have a 660. That's considered good in the eyes of mortgage lenders. And so that shows that you're fairly responsible. You pay your bills on time. You pay them, you know, for the most part in full. You are not spending up your credit, and so you're not close to maxing out whatever credit you have, and you're trustworthy. At the end of the day, your credit score, your credit report, your credit history is meant to be a number that tells mortgage lenders how trustworthy you are. So that's my recommendation. If your credit score is less than 660, I definitely recommend that you pull your credit report. And when you pull your credit report, you should be looking for errors. You should be looking for late payments. You should be looking for where you're close to maxing out your limit, because 65% of your credit score is payment history and credit utilization. So you want to make sure that you're not close to your credit limit, and also that you're making payments on time. Even if it's just the minimum, you want to make it on time, because that'll help boost your score if you're not currently paying on time, because that's worth 30% of your score. And so there's so much you can say about credit. I can do a separate scope on that. But 660, if you're less than 660 and you're trying to buy a home within the next year, pull your credit report. You can go to each of the 3 credit bureaus, so Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. You can pull one per year. And so I recommend, you know, since there's 3 bureaus and 12 months in a year, I recommend you pull it every 4 months, just so you know what it looks like. All right. Third, when you are preparing for home ownership, you want to be in a habit of saving money and also being mindful of how you spend. So when I bought my house, I qualified for a conventional loan, which was typically considered one of those loans where you have to put 20% down, and you know, you get preferred rates or whatever. But somehow I was able to get a conventional loan and only have to put down 3%. So I was able to avoid, you know, the FHA government loans, Sallie Mae. I was able to avoid all that because my credit score came in just at the level that I needed to be in order to get that loan. And so when you, I'm talking about Sallie Mae. Sallie Mae, I done lost my train of thought. Sallie Mae. How did I lose my train of thought just like that? All right, Sallie Mae. Yes, down payment, sorry. So you want to save for a down payment because yes, there are programs out there. Yes, there are grants out there, but you don't want to depend or rely heavily on that. Why? Because if you do and it doesn't come through, you're stuck. So I definitely recommend you save at least 3% for your down payment. And you may ask, 3% of what? Well, if you go on Trulia.com, that's Trulia.com, that's a website where you can look at homes for sale. Zillow.com is another one, except their prices are a little more overinflated. So just look at what houses they have out there in the areas that you want to live in, so you can kind of get an idea of how much the houses cost that you like. When I was searching, I noticed that the houses I like were between 150 and 180,000. So I was basing what I needed to have saved off of 3% of 180,000. So that's a good rule of thumb, to just start looking at what houses are out there on the market and then taking 3% of the max price on the house that you like. So once you have that, it's good because, number one, you're not dependent on somebody giving you money, but if somebody gives you money, you have emergency information saved. Another thing too, once you actually start the process, you'll need to come out of your pocket right away with an earnest money deposit. And what that means is when you go to put in an offer for the home, the buyers that are, the sellers that are selling their house, they want to know that you're serious. And so the way that they know that is that you put some money on your offer or on your bid, so that way it holds it. So when I bought my house, I had to write a check for $1,000 earnest money deposit. Now my realtor, she held on to that. She put it in escrow. And so that 3% down payment that I had to pay, that $1,000 was deducted from the down payment that I needed to pay. So it all goes towards your credit. It all goes towards, that down payment. So it's not like they're just taking your money. But you need to have that money readily available so that way you can turn it over to your realtor or loan company. Another thing too, I had to get an inspection done on the house to make sure that, structurally the house was in good condition, to see, what needed to be repaired, what needed to be replaced, what damages were done. Were there any issues like termites? Were there any indications of water damage? Are there any problems with my house? So I wanted to know that because obviously it's a large investment and I needed to pay someone to check it out. So that was a few $100s. So you want to have at least 3%, but you want to shoot for more than that because you are going to have expenses that you're going to have to pay through the home buying process. And so I had to pay for an inspection. And, I didn't buy furniture right away, but if you want to buy furniture, you want to make sure you have money for that. I didn't need to do any painting because everything was neutral colored the way that I like it. But if you want to paint, if you want to decorate, if you want to remodel, you want to have additional money for that too. And so it's very, very, very important that you are in a habit of saving and put away money. Because even once you get in the house, if something breaks down, you want to have money tucked away to be able to take care of those emergencies. And once you spend that money, you want to be able to replenish it, even if it's, just a little bit every paycheck. You want to be able to consistently put money in an account so that way you know that it's always there. If you have an issue or an emergency, something needs to get taken care of, you don't have to worry about not having enough money in your paycheck to be able to cover it because you've already started saving just in case you needed to spend that money. And so it's very important to be in a habit of saving. Even if you like to spend money, make sure you put your money away first. And then whatever you have left, that's what you have to work with. But it has to be something that's like clockwork. Every time you get paid, you look at your expenses, you look at how much you make, you look at how much you should have left over, and you're figuring out what dollar amount can you afford to put away and still live pretty comfortably. And it may be a sacrifice, but if you really want to achieve this dream of home ownership, you'll be willing to do what it takes to be uncomfortable temporarily so you can be comfortable long term. So, for those of you who are just jumping on, good evening. Say hello so I know who you are. And for those of you still with me, tap and give me some hearts so I know that this is resonating with you, that you're getting something out of this. Hello. Because I want to make sure that the information that I'm giving is helpful. This topic is so overloaded because you have so many different pieces that go into it, from the credit piece to the savings piece and all that. So I know it's a lot of information, but I'm giving you what you need to think about and what you need to start doing. Good. What you need to start doing in order to get yourself prepared. Because my thing is, you know, it's great if you can afford to buy a house and, you know, and all that. But if you purchase a house, that's a 15 or 30 year commitment. And so, you know, my story is, you know, I lived in a house growing up. We bought our second home. I was 4 years old, and we bought it. I'm originally from New York City. We purchased a home by LaGuardia Airport. New construction. We was the first people to move into the home, so it was literally ours. And, you know, New York City, the price of real estate is ridiculous. So in the 90s, our home, I think it was $240 or $280. Mental notes, I need you to write it down in case you forget it. But if your mind is that good, by all means. And you can also catch the replay. So we got it for, okay, $240. That's my mom, y'all. So we got it for $240. And, you know, now that price is extremely low. So that was in 94. We got the house for $240,000. And so in New York, because the price of real estate just went through the roof, you know, as the years went on, 12 years later, fast forward, unfortunately, my dad wasn't able to keep up with the mortgage payments. It wasn't that he didn't have the money. He just wasn't, you know, making the best choices and decisions when it came to managing the money that was coming in. And so we were basically forced to sell in order to avoid foreclosure because the bill got really, really high. And so my mom, she packed us all up and we went to Virginia for a week and stayed with some cousins, scoped out the land in a good school district, found a house for rent, went back to New York, and in a month we moved from New York to Virginia. And I mean, we lived in that house for 12 years. So it's like, you know, from 4 years old to 17, I grew up in this house. And so this house was home. And I mean, we took what we could, but a lot of stuff we ended up putting on the curb and it just went in the trash. And so there was no reason why we shouldn't have been able to, you know, keep up with the mortgage on our home, especially since we was 12 years in to a 30-year mortgage. But unfortunately, when you don't manage your money properly, you know, it doesn't matter that you was able to buy the home. What matters is that you can stay in it, that you can manage it. And so regardless of where you are right now financially, it's not about how you start, but how you finish. And I'd much rather for you get, you know, things together as far as how you manage your money on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis, month-to-month basis first, so that way you have a firm foundation. So when you get into a home, that you'll be able to keep and maintain not just your mortgage bill, but everything else that comes with it. And so you'll be successful, so you won't end up in that same situation that my family was in. You know, I'll share another part of my testimony with you. When I graduated college. I was working in corporate America for 3.5 years, and I was saving $500 a month, preparing for home ownership. And 2 years ago, I decided to change jobs. So the company that I was working for went through a whole reorg, and I wasn't happy. People was leaving left and right. People was getting laid off. And so I wanted to move. And so when I moved to a different job that was less stressful, it was actually a nonprofit. I took a $21,000 pay cut. And that was the same year that I bought my house. So my income went down $21,000 and my expenses went up at least $600. So if you think about that, that math is just off. But fortunately, because, I'm very disciplined when it comes to managing my money, all my bills got paid on time and in full. For 2 years, I had to deal with that pay cut and living in my house. And saving money for those 3.5 years helped me to stay afloat with what my job was not providing. And so since then, thank God, I did get a promotion with a substantial pay increase of $18,000. And so I'm almost back to where I was when, 2 years ago. So I am glad about that. But believe you me, if I was not disciplined with managing money, if I wasn't, or if I didn't save faithfully, diligently as much as I did, when I needed money for emergencies, it wouldn't have been there. And so, it could have been a very difficult situation that I got in with my home and being able to keep up with the mortgage payment. So it's a big deal. So you gotta prepare for the worst and hope for the best, literally. So yeah, we pretty much talked about everything. Another thing I wanted to cover was debt to income ratio. And that's just making sure that when you look at the monthly payments for each of your debts, like credit cards, car loans, you want to make sure that when you compare that total monthly amount and divide it by your monthly income, that percentage is low versus high. Because if you have a lot of debt compared to your income, then that lets lenders know that you may not have a lot of money available in order to make your mortgage payment. And so that's a big deal too. If you can, I recommend paying down your debt before you get a mortgage, because that frees up your money so much more. So, paying off your car loan, paying off credit cards, paying off personal loans and student loans. I recommend you try and pay that off as much as possible before purchasing a home. But if you have to, just make sure that, with those debt payments that you have, when you start paying a mortgage, just making sure you'll still be comfortable and have some wiggle room in there. So thank you all for joining and tuning in for this week. I hope that it was helpful. For those of you catching the replay, I hope you found it helpful. Please share this with somebody you know who's preparing for home ownership, because it's a big decision and it's a huge commitment, and I don't want people to take it lightly, because as I shared earlier, my personal story, the result of my dad's poor decisions was my whole family having to move every 3 years, every 2 years to a new place, because financially we just, didn't have it to stay in the same place or to buy a house right away. So your decision, especially if you have a family, and not just affects you, but it affects the people living with you. And so you want to make sure that you started off right And if you're already in a home, you want to make sure you get it right, so that way you can continue to grow and progress and not go backwards. And also, I just released an online personal finance course called Money Management 101. It's designed for people who are needing help with managing money and controlling their spending. And so if you go to my website, which is linked in my profile, you'll be directed to my website. And on my website, you'll see the picture, Money Management 101. You click that and it'll take you to where you can enroll. And so that's the equivalent of working with me for 2 hours. So it's valued at $250. It's currently going for $49. And so if you're somebody who, you need to get your finances together, you're not sure where to start, especially with the holidays coming up and the new year right around the corner. I know people are now in a time where they're thinking about how I'm going to, improve my finances. And so I want you to think about what it is you need to do in order to reach whatever goals you have. And so in it talks about goal setting and thinking about what goals you have. It walks you through basically creating a vision for yourself of what your finances look like. So there's some exercises in there about that. It goes through, budgeting, getting a budget created, tracking your spending, and then teaching you how to be financially fit. So if that's you, if you're somebody who's trying to figure out how to get your finances together, again, my website, Hand in Hand Investment Solutions, is linked in my profile. Go to the website and the link is right there on the home page. So does anybody have any questions? Hello, for those of you just joining, we actually just wrapped up, so you'll have to catch the replay. All right, so it looks like there are no questions. So again, thank you all for tuning in. I'll be back again next Monday at 7 p.m. No, I just bought my house 2 years ago. So I'm only 2 years in. I have a 30-year loan. I doubt I'll be in Richmond for 30 years, but so yeah, I've been in it for only 2 years. All right, so thank you all for tuning in. I'll be back again next Monday at 7 p.m. again for Money Monday. And so if you're not currently following me, please make sure you do. Again, please share this if you know somebody who's preparing for home ownership, to help them with the things that they should be thinking about. And again, if you are somebody who is in the beginning stages of trying to get their finances together, especially for the new year, I definitely recommend you check out my course, Money Management 101. And so if you go to my profile, you'll see the link to my website, handinhandinvestmentsolutions.com. It's right on the website. You click it, you can get all the details. So if that's a good fit for you, please go and get that. So thank you so much for the hearts. So we're actually wrapping up, so I will leave this up for you to get the replay. And so I'll be on again next week, next Monday at 7 p.m. So you all have a great night, and I will talk to you next week.